call the Design Adjustment Committee meeting to order. Before we get started, I have to read an introduction. The Design Adjustment Committee's purpose is to establish clear and measurable review criteria for the consideration of major deviations from the city's technical standards and specifications manual. The Design Adjustment Committee does not consider the housing type, cost of the proposed unit, occupants, building material, unit size, number of bedrooms, or the architectural design of the structures. These hearings are quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings. That means it's like a court hearing, and the committee's decisions are constrained by the standards in the ordinance and based upon the facts presented. All variance requests require a 4/5 vote of the committee to grant the variance. Appeals of the Design Adjustment Committee are to the Superior Court. The parties of these cases are entitled to an impartial board. If a board member has a fixed opinion on the matter, a financial interest in the outcome, a close relationship with an affected person, or has had any ex parte communication about the matter, please disclose that information and to determine if a recusal is necessary. City staff will introduce a proposed project to the committee, and committee members may ask questions. The applicant may present additional information about the project, and the members may ask questions. If anyone wishes to provide evidence at today's hearing, witnesses must sign in the clipboard in the back of the room and be sworn in. Because witnesses are to provide sworn testimony, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. When a witness comes forward to give testimony, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and speak clearly. At this time, staff will administer the oath for individuals who intend to provide witness testimony.
If I could have staff, applicants, and any members of the public who wish to speak to please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you agree that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the September meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? And if so, do I have a motion? I will second that. I didn't hear the mic, sorry. All in favor say aye of approval.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So our first order of business, Megacorp Logistics. First and only.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This site is located adjacent to 1011 Ashes Drive, contains approximately 5 acres, and is currently vacant. This property is zoned O&I, Office and Institutional Zoning District. The proposal shown on your screen includes the construction of a commercial parking lot consisting of 315 parking spaces. There are about 236 parking spaces existing on the adjacent site, which is occupied by Megacorp Logistics. A commercial parking lot use is permitted within the O&I zoning district. There are no defined minimum or maximum parking requirements for a commercial parking lot use. The parking lot is accessed via 2 private driveway connections shown on your screen. A portion of this parcel is currently landlocked as well. Per the city's technical standards, if a private drive accesses a through street, the total length shall not exceed 500 linear feet. The applicant has shown a drive longer than the amount permitted in the technical standards, and therefore a waiver is required from those standards. I would ask that this presentation be included in the record in the case summary as well. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have the applicant here as well.
I had one question.
Sure.
So Old Macomber Station Road, it does not go, it's not a complete road, right? It does not?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any information? I thought I remember hearing you said that there are 236 spaces. Is that on the existing parcel now?
Yes. That is on the existing site where the Megacorp headquarters and parking is located.
And that,
now.
but that does not include the parcel that's sort of grayed out in the bottom of the screen, right?
Right.
Okay. Do you know, how does that 236 compare with the minimum and maximums that would be permitted for that existing building? Do we know any information about that?
I don't have that on hand. I may defer to the applicant on that one if they have that information.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant wish to speak?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, good to see you. Thanks for having us on the Design Adjustment Committee meeting today. Yes, the parcel where the proposed parking facility is to be located is the former Wrightsville Beach landfill. If you go back through history, and somewhere, I think along the way, this parcel became landlocked, and so there was no roadway created for this parcel, during that process, which has led to where we are now, is extending, the driveway access, the approximately 800 feet from Ashes Drive is, the closest connecting point, to this commercial parking facility. And I'm not sure let me see if I have a number on the parking existing, 250, and it's about 37,000, 16,000 for 53,000 square feet for 260 spaces. I don't know where that math in my head doesn't work that fast, but so I don't know how it falls, Rob, on the parking off the top of my head on that.
Any
But, we'll be happy to answer any other questions if you got any on the.
Yeah, so is this parcel going to be recombined with the other to alleviate that landlocked, or is this separate for a particular reason?
It was previously separated from the current Megacorp parcel. There has been a recombination, if you go back, I don't know, Pat, you can go back to the previous screen. So the Megacorp parcel is connected to Ashes Drive. The parcel to the east had not been connected to the Megacorp parcel. It got recombined recently, a couple years maybe. The parcel to the north is still the same owner, but it hasn't been recombined. There may be reasons, in discussing with Pat recently, there was maybe a need to recombine the two, but keep it separated from the Megacorp parcel. Of course, there would be some access easements that would be recorded through that. But I think, whatever would be necessary, we're obviously going to make those steps necessary.
And then, if you wouldn't mind, Brian, going back to the site plan, I had a question. It looks like the third parking island down from the top where there is a hatching to show a crosswalk, is that a sidewalk that's going around the whole property, or?
If you start at the southern arrow at that driveway access, there would be a walkway trail that continues up parallel to that side property line and comes up and goes, and those are Duke Power Line, main transmission lines run north and south right there. So there is a walkway path that essentially circles the whole parking area.
Thank you.
Shane, I was wondering if you could speak to the need. Obviously, what is this parking going to be? Why are 307 spaces needed for this expansion?
Mm-hmm. The Megacorp as a business is rapidly growing and a very, important, business in the city of Wilmington. The existing facility, and I'm not attuned to all of their operations. I've been in there a couple of times, but, it's a very dense employee facility. So, their density there is such that, they're running at, let me see, their current staff is about 400. So with 276 existing parking spaces, that's not enough to accommodate their current employee load, and their projections, over the next couple of years take it out another 300 employees. Some are there. They're also looking, and I may have a purchase agreement already with another property to the north, which, you know, there needs to be some additional overflow parking there. You know, I don't know if you drive through there during the day, but they're strapped for parking.
You know, I've definitely seen that they're strapped for parking, and I can appreciate the need for accommodating parking. It's a pretty substantial deviation from the requirements, and obviously part of that is going to be to justify the need for all of those spaces. And then my follow-up question to that is, I know that on one of the previous TRC submittals, there was a connection to the north, and then on the resubmittal, that went away. And then, as you can see in this aerial, when it was, I guess it must have been something to do with the remediation work, but there was an access point to the parcel, I guess to the, was that northeast?
Yeah.
And are those both not options for,
I believe that as you can see in that aerial, I think that there was some construction easement that was allowed to conduct those remediation efforts at that time. The Megacorp has been in contact with, you know, those surrounding property owners there to try and, you know, accommodate an access easement, but have not had any positive results from those approaches. In that first pre-TRC submittal, you know, we had proposed, you know, a sidewalk connector up to Sir Tyler Drive that would connect to, you know, the entire circulation sidewalk that Ms. Boneback was pointing out. And that hasn't been able to be worked out either. So we're not getting a lot of progress with access to the north.
okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Regarding the justification specifically, normally we get a diagram showing, you know, how far, you know, the measurements that we're looking at approving or looking at making a determination on. Do you have any of those measurements?
The measurement was 800 feet from the driveway of Ashes Drive.
Let me rephrase that. Do
Do
you
I have
know
a
how
picture
far
of
you're
it?
deviating from that?
300 feet.
300 feet.
300 feet. The maximum amount is 500 feet, and the proposed amount is 800 feet, so it'd be a 300-foot deviation.
So the distance from Ashes Drive to what point on this site plan?
The red arrow to the north, that red arrow.
Okay.
But you still got distance back to Ashes Drive as well,
Correct. That's what what are we?
Yeah,
what
how
are
far
we-
from Ashes Drive?
What are we
is-
deviating from?
Yeah,
Can you flip back to the,
do you have a mouse that you can, is there,
can I,
I don't know if you have access to use that to point on the screen or not, but it would be helpful. No? I don't see it. Oh, there it is, yeah.
oh, there we go. Pat, there was another site plan that showed Ashes Drive. There. So from the connection point to Ashes Drive here to this driveway is 800 feet. So by the code, it should not exceed 500 feet. So we're asking for a deviation of 300 feet.
So, I'm sorry, from Ashes, where your cursor was previously, to the furthest point into your new proposed parking area, how far are we?
No, the furthest point inside the parking is, I'd have to double check the measurement, but I think it might be 1,000 feet to the furthest parking point.
If I may, in the case summary, I believe the total length was 1,280 feet.
Okay,
The one time I don't
Okay.
read the case summary.
all right. So 1280 from Ashes Drive through the existing site, through the proposed parking to the furthest point is 1280.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I think was that the question
That
you were
was,
getting at?
yeah, the one
Okay.
time I didn't read the.
Now, is the adjustment from the furthest parking space or a driveway from a public way to the parking facility?
Well, we consider the parking facility is the parking space.
The furthest part.
Yeah, the furthest parking space. So the one that is the furthest from the public,
Way.
the public way is where the variance is listed. So it's a pretty substantial deviation from a 500-foot maximum. Of course, the existing parking doesn't appear to be compliant with the 5.8, but we're extending that further, quite a bit further. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? I can't promise we won't bring you back up, but I appreciate it.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we just have the variance today to consider, so any discussion on this?
Public, open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I was going to talk about it, and then we can. Okay. Okay, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any discussion amongst the committee on this?
I have some concerns about this meeting, the design standards, adjustment requirements. I don't necessarily see how this is in harmony with the area. I understand the need for parking. Pat can correct me if I'm wrong, but parking in the area for any use could be reduced if it's within, like, if it's outside of 650 feet from residential, parking could be reduced by 50% if necessary. Is that correct? The parking,
With this, it wouldn't be use-based, it would be a commercial parking lot as the use.
as the existing use? Okay.
As the proposed use, and this would all be on, as I believe the applicant alluded to, a recombination. It would be on one parcel, and the use of the property would be a commercial parking lot.
Okay. It just seems like a very big request that isn't talking about topographic constraints. I'm not seeing any presence of existing building streams or any other natural features. I do understand that there has been some conversations regarding access via Old McCumbered Station, mooring, to the north and everything like that. But it just seems that that is the only standard of approval that it could possibly meet. And yeah, I'm just not certain this is meeting those design criterias.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a similar concern. I mean, I can definitely recognize the site constraints of not having deeded access to this parcel. I get that, but I don't know that obligates us to approve, any deviation to fully use the property, especially, with, we definitely know that there's a need for additional parking, but I don't know that I can see that there's a justification for 307 spaces of additional parking.
And I absolutely agree, because again, from what Pat and the applicant have explained, this is on its own lot too. So this doesn't necessarily mean that the parking will be just for the mega core based on the use.
Right.
So not only that, but who else could be utilizing this that could need the access? That is a concern.
I might be more willing to support it if they had another connection point. So I don't know. I guess, I don't know whether this question is for the applicant. You had, Shane, I don't know if you need to come back up or what, but you had mentioned the existing staff, and then you had mentioned a projected growth. Does that projected growth involve an expansion of the existing building, or are they planning to accommodate that within the existing facility somehow? Or do you know?
I believe it would be, a combination of, some internal growth in the existing facility, but there's also potential purchase of, there's a building at the end of Sir Tyler Drive on the roundabout. I don't remember who's
Is it the
in
one that's
Canal.
shown kind of just off the power line?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, top right.
Not that rooftop, there's another one north of that. You can just barely
There's
see
three
the.
buildings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
middle one?
cul-de-sac up there that,
Yeah.
that's at the other side of that, that would, be their projected growth, you know. I would also like to point out that, you know, there's almost no way that I can see, to connect this property to anybody without a design adjustment variance. You know, you pointed out, you know, the current parking probably doesn't meet that. And, you know, if there's anything built there, you know, there would have to be some design adjustment for that driveway length, because there's no, you know, and, you know, there's no public way within 500 feet of the project.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Pat, regarding the interconnectivity, what does our standard say about this property abuts two properties that are on Sir Tyler Drive? Is there any language in the code about interconnectivity of lots of this nature?
I don't believe a cross-access would be required here. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't abut a frontage road. Therefore, I don't believe it'd be required, but I could be incorrect.
Yeah, there is, that's correct. There's no cross-access requirement in this situation due to the fact of where it's located. And there's also no public or private street that would require any kind of stub connection, so it's kind of no man's land.
So it looks like part of this parcel has been recombined with the parcel that is adjacent to Ashes Drive. Is that correct?
I think
Yeah.
that's the yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't even think that it meets then the site layout of adjacent adjoining properties because it adjoins Old Macomber Station, which is not a property that's right of way. It's adjacent to a property that has direct access to Ashes. The other property has direct access to Ashes. So I think that's a really good point.
And I don't know if I'm a little confused about the need for the additional parking for a property that's not even shown on this, like, if somebody were to use this parking lot for that off-site building, how would they even get there? You know, there's no connectivity, there's no connection whatsoever for somebody using this lot for something off-site. They would have to walk all the way over to Ashes to, and up Ashes to Sir Tyler, and
Yeah, I mean, you know, I understand that there's an existing parking issue with the existing building, and I feel like I have more sympathy to address an existing problem with you know, a smaller parking expansion. I'm much more hesitant to give them some sort of blanket approval to expand to the full 300 spaces until we know where and how they're expanding. Or they could get some sort of connection point. I feel like that would, so I'm struggling with how to go about approving this. You know, it's like, can we approve a lesser, you know, deviation from the standard? I'm not really sure what the way to move forward. How about you guys, any thoughts on this?
Something I don't understand is the underlying reason for the ordinance to begin with, to have a limit at 500 feet. Can you help me understand the underlying reason for the rule to begin with?
Well, I didn't create it, but what I have heard is that EMS response time plays a part and connectivity plays a part. We want to encourage connectivity and discourage long winding, you know, dead end type access points. And that's what I've always heard. Now, again, you know, the intent is not spelled out in the standards all the time, but that's what I've heard. So that's why, you know, when we typically you hear these cases, we focus a lot on emergency services but connectivity is a big part of it. And I think connectivity is a bigger part on this issue, although some of the dead-end parking aisles, I think, could be better laid out to encourage better circulation within the parking that's there. That's my thought. So,
Let me ask a question real quick. You talk about an area there that is for the applicant. You said there's a Duke Power easement that's coming across that property from the landlocked area. Is this, and again, I'm being ignorant here, is this an above-ground service or is this an underground service? Okay, and do we know, is it high voltage primary? Okay, and that would be going over the parking area, correct? Okay. Have you investigated the premise about fire code requirements for parking vehicles under high power tension lines?
Yes, we've been in contact with Duke.
Sir, you'll need to come to the microphone. Sorry.
all right, Shane.
I thought the head nod would be enough, but no, we've been in contact with Duke Energy on you know, their requirements under the transmission lines, Bill Wilder, and yeah, we've been in touch
but
with them
there's
about
also a provision in the North Carolina State Fire Code that also has restrictions about parking vehicles within certain proximities of high voltage lines. Were you aware of that?
Not aware of that. You know, I don't think that came up at pre-TRC. We did address, you know, the circulation around the ends of those parking areas at the request of the fire reviewer, you know, that extension of that amount of distance was not, you know,
Sure.
ideal.
And again, like I said, you may not be able to answer the question because I don't have the particular provisions in front of me right
Yeah,
now, but I know there is a chapter in the code that has a restriction of how far cars have to be or they cannot be parked directly up under. I don't know if it parallels what Duke Energy's requirements are. I'm not as familiar with that section because we don't deal with it that often.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I didn't know if that had also been addressed or purviewed prior to the submission of this.
I don't think that particular part, Mr. Elrod, and yeah, but we'll certainly investigate that some more when we go to, we're supposed to be to TRC on the 25th, I think. And,
Okay.
We'll dig into that a little more.
All right, thank you.
So, any other discussion on that? If so, we are going to have to finalize this somehow. I mean, if we're not comfortable with this layout exceeding with this, that we can always disapprove it and, or not approve it, and then they would have to come back. I don't know that I'm prepared to support a deviation to this extent. I could probably maybe approve it with a condition that they add a connection, an ungated connection to the north somewhere. Understanding they don't have that yet, that would give them the option to go pursue that and then not have to come back, or revise their design and come back to the committee. I feel like that's kind of where I'm at.
I don't see how they're meeting any of the standards for approval. Just based on, again, there is not a topographic constraint. There is not a presence of existing buildings, streams, or other natural features. The site layout of adjacent adjoining properties, they still have access, and they're, again, connecting to right-of-ways. Adjoining uses in their vehicles are incompatible. That's not the case. Strict compliance would pose a safety hazard. There are some concerns about whether or not even the parking it would be safe, depending on what regulations are in place. And conflict with improved or built roadway construction, that does not apply in this case. So I'm not necessarily certain that a reduction in their driveway length would improve or make a case for any of those.
Okay. So, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the request based on the fact that there are no topographic constraints, presence of existing building streams or other natural features, site layout of adjoining properties, adjoining uses or their vehicles are incompatible, strict compliance that would pose a safety hazard, and conflicts with an approved or built roadway construction project adjacent to or in the vicinity of the site, based on the exceedingly long length request that they have and the applicant's justification.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? So we have a motion to deny. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think that's all. I guess that being the only meeting, or the item, I guess we're adjourned.